At this point, I am fully convinced that the driller's main goal in life is to make both the HR and R&D departments sweat as many bullets as possible with his choice of weaponry. If you're not convinced, then just look at the machine monstrosity that is Colette Wave Cooker. The driller's arsenal is certainly quite unorthodox compared to the other classes. With flamethrowers, sludge pumps, plasma pistols, you would be really hard pressed to find anything close to normal weapons in his kit. This includes the microwave components turned tool of destruction, the Colette Wave Cooker. So if you guys are ready, let's talk about the Wave Cooker and the kinds of overclocks it has access to so you can see if it's the secondary weapon to add to your build. By the way, if you want to help the channel grow, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe so you never miss another upload.
If it ain't drillable, it's probably flammable.
So the Wave Cooker is probably, in my opinion, the weirdest and most unorthodox weapon in the entire game. It certainly stands out compared to the rest of the arsenals at least. The Wave Cooker is the third secondary weapon the driller has access to, so you will have to play him quite a lot to unlock it. Similar to the gunner's minigun and the driller's EPC, this weapon feeds from a single ammo pool and has an overheating system. After firing for an extended period of time and completely filling up the heat meter, the Wave Cooker will jam, rendering it inoperable for a few seconds. When using the Wave Cooker, a beam is produced that inflicts continuous damage onto any enemy that is within its path, or ally if they're unlucky enough. The damage this weapon does is actually split in half with 50% fire and 50% radiation. The weapon also essentially has infinite range, and enemies have special effects if killed by it, such as the exploders not actually exploding when they die. So in short, the Wave Cooker is weird. It requires a different way of thinking compared to pretty much everything else in the game and has a very unique way of dealing damage. That's not to say that it's not effective, in fact it's quite the opposite. The Wave Cooker can be really good at both dealing damage as well as supporting the rest of your kit as a utility tool. One cool factor about it is that it can damage enemies that normally have their weak points in hard to reach places. Think oppressors, praetorians, and even dreadnoughts. This can actually help keep the damage output consistent when hitting bigger threats. It also means you don't have to be nearly as worried about positioning with this weapon. Now it's time to talk about the overclocks for the Wave Cooker. As of Season 4, the Wave Cooker has 6 overclocks, with the standard split of 2 clean, 2 balanced, and 2 unstable. Next, as always, we'll go through each of them and talk about what they do and the kinds of ways that you can utilize them. So with that, let's start with the clean overclocks, and the first one is the liquid cooling system. The description reads, extremely efficient cooling system that helps the weapon generate slightly less heat, makes it cool faster, and will spend less time jammed. So even though this weapon does not use traditional ammo, that still does not exempt it from having an ammo efficiency clean overclock, helping it maintain its heat buildup and cooling power. Specifically, it improves your heat generation by 10%, your cooling rate by 17%, and your overheat duration by 0.2 seconds. So again, as I have said time and time again, these kinds of overclocks will never be a bad choice for you to make. They simply give you better ammo management and allow you to have more consistent damage output. The next clean overclock we have is Super Focused Lens. This one reads, a lens add-on that focuses the microwave significantly, enhancing their damage output for up to 4 meters. So this one is an extremely simple overclock that gives a significant damage boost to the cooker against targets within a 4-meter range. Specifically, it increases the damage by 50%, although the stat screen doesn't necessarily say the exact percentage increases. So while the Wave Cooker has effectively infinite range, this overclock wants you to be more of a close quarters brawler and stay up close and personal with the bugs. That's kind of all there is to say about this one, as it is extremely simple and there aren't too many crazy strategies to accommodate it. Just get close enough to the bugs to smell their breath and let loose. Moving on to the balanced overclocks, first we have Diffusion Ray. This one reads, with some mechanical stress to the heat generator, the microwaves can penetrate deeper, being able to go through several enemies at once and slows them down. However, the stress takes a lot of toll on the generator and decreases its damage output slightly. So this one gives you the ability to have collateral hits with the Wave Cooker as well as slow them down in exchange for a little less damage. Going through the numbers, it adds +3 penetration for each enemy hit and reduces their movement speed by 20%. This is offset by reducing your direct damage output by 1. So this overclock can help turn the Wave Cooker into a tool more suited for area control by making it able to hit multiple enemies and keeping them slowed down to make it easier for either yourself or your allies to take out. The slightly lower damage output isn't too crazy and you'll still find yourself having a good amount of damage going through. This is probably best run with a full team setup, as again, your damage output is going to be reduced, so if you're running solo, it's not going to be helping you out a whole lot. The other balanced overclock option we have is Mega Power Supply. This one reads a bit on the larger side, but with a few modifications to the weapon, you can now use the most powerful power source R&D could smuggle back from the black market. The extra energy boosts rate of fire and total ammo at the cost of a lower cooldown and longer unjammed duration. So this one is a little bit of a souped up version of an ammo overclock that gives you a lot more ammo and rate of fire at the cost of worse cooling and overheating. To be specific, it gives you plus 100 to your magazine size and plus 3 to your rate of fire. To compensate, it reduces your cooling rate by 50% and increases your overheat duration by 1 second. So this is similar to other overclocks from other weapons that have the same sort of style, letting you go full bullet hose, or in this case full beam hose? Anyway, this overclock is for those who want to let loose and just hold down the trigger and let out a full battery on every glyphid in the area. Just make sure you don't overheat because you will be out of commission for a little while longer in that case. The slower cooling rate and a higher overheat duration can be a little bit degrading, so you have to have a little bit more trigger discipline if you're going to use this one. Now it's time to go over the unstable overclocks, and the first one we have is Blistering Necrosis. The description reads, adding an experimental electron tube makes the microwave generate more heat, oiling the skin on enemies in the shape of large blisters. The blisters bypass armor, enhances incoming direct damage, and hurts the enemy when popped. The large amounts of heat generated comes at the price of a lower cooldown rate. So this one is my personal favorite of the Wave Cooker's overclocks, so much so that I made an entire build that uses this in combination with the flamethrower extremely well. Essentially, it allows you to create artificial weak points on enemies at the cost of worse heat management. To be specific, it gives you a 10% chance to create a blister at the cost of 25% to weapon heat generation and minus 25% to cooling rate. So to explain what the blisters are exactly and how they work, every time the Wave Cooker deals damage to an enemy, there is a 10% chance of it creating a blister, which is basically an artificial weak point that looks like a gigantic zit, transferring damage in an increased amount to the affected enemy. They can't gain any status effects like burning or freezing and have their own hitbox that is separate from the creature it is attached to, allowing some weapons to hit creatures multiple times. Creatures may also inflict self-damage from their projectiles depending on where the blister is attached to. When the blister runs out of health, it deals a burst of damage in a very small AoE centered on its location. So all of this translates to this overclock being really good at handling bigger enemies by making them easier to take out. There are many times where an enemy just isn't showing its weak point and you can't get a good shot on it. Well, then you could just make your own weak spot, and the blisters are really easy to see for anybody on your team to take out. This makes it especially effective against huge threats like oppressors and praetorians. This can give you some insane random bursts of high damage that can work wonders against tougher threats. The other unstable overclock option is Gamma Contamination. The description reads, installing a lens of uranium glass cranks the radioactivity of your microwaves to 11. Hit targets have a chance to become contaminated with radiation, suffering damage and emitting harmful radioactive waves to nearby enemies. The small size of the lens reduces microwave impact radius and damage, while the amount of power required reduces total ammo. So this overclock is 100% not safe to wield and is probably giving the driller a huge amount of radiation problems. It also gives the weapon the ability to irradiate enemies, causing damage and debilitating them. Going over the numbers, it gives the weapon a 25% chance to irradiate enemies on hit. This comes at the cost of -1 to the beam damage, -50 to the magazine size, and -50 to the shot width. So to explain the mechanics surrounding the radiation effect, basically it gives the Wave Cooker a 25% chance to apply a radiation damage over time effect, as well as a radioactive field that surrounds the affected enemy. The field can damage nearby enemies, and multiple radiation fields can affect multiple enemies at once, so you can actually get some overlapping field damaging enemies if done properly. This can help spread some seriously good damage to many different enemies. Using this overclock can be very useful for covering many different enemies in radiation, which make it great for dealing with large swarms with heavy area damage. The lack of damage, however, can make the weapon feel very weak, so it's best to run this with a team as well to back you up. That being said, if you do, then it is certainly a very good one for both crowd control and utility. Just, don't bring this to the radioactive exclusion zone, you won't be doing a whole lot of damage there. Well, that about covers the Wave Cooker and the overclocks it has access to and how you can use them to great effect. Honestly, while I did say that this weapon is very weird, that does not make it any less useful. The Wave Cooker has a lot of utility and can be used in many different ways to complement the driller's kit. Whether you're running the flamethrower, the sludge pump, or the cryo cannon, it can really benefit a lot from elemental and status effects. This means that it can work very well in a team setup because every class has the ability to apply many different status debuffs. Hopefully now you have a better understanding of this rather odd weapon. Let me know down in the comments what your favorite overclock to use with this weapon is. If you guys like this and want to see more, make sure you check out the playlist I have with all the primary weapons and the ones that I am currently going through with the secondary weapons, so you can see if I've done one covering your favorite weapon. Anyway, I hope you guys found this video enjoyable and helpful. Be sure to give it a like because it tells me what types of videos you guys want to see. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.